that you're learning, it's never really a failure, right? Because once you have the information, no one can ever take it from you, and you just add to that, and it becomes a compound effect. And that compound effect naturally, the natural progression of that, more specifically in real estate investing, leads to you learning more, earning more, and being more successful. You don't really hard to take a step back and go backwards in real estate, especially when you're applying the information. So it really becomes a lesson and a blessing rather than a mistake. We're going to dive right in.
Brian's in here.
Brian, good morning. Good morning. We have a few more people coming in, and we're going to get back to it. Our live sessions on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. with our Deal Mastery 101, which is an open course for anybody looking to grow in real estate investing. It's free. It's value for you because we want to see you shine. And like I said many times early in my career, I didn't have a platform or a source or an outlet to kind of achieve this information and grow in real estate. And that's why it's so near and dear to me. Today, we're going to talk about entry points, and we're going to talk about exit strategies, right? And that's very important. We talk about it frequently, and it's important to kind of go over it once again, because that is so important when you start thinking about how am I going to grow in real estate, or I don't know anything in real estate. You need to know these basics right here. So let's dive right in without further ado. Who else in DM 201 is in today?
We only got Natalia and Brian.
Brian and Natalia. Let's do it. IG. Did I say 201?
Yeah.
Forgive me. Correction. This is DM 101. So in real estate investing, there are so many different pieces that can be are overwhelming for anybody that gets into it, because you think about the money, you think about the deal, you think about how do you find a contractor, how do you find the right contractor, right? How do you know what you don't know? So DM 101, we're back to the basics. In real estate, again, there's entry strategies and then there's exit strategies. I'm going to name a few entry strategies that you'll find in real estate investing, right? And so when you enter a deal, right? Entering a deal is what happens when you identify a deal and you're about to start that process of executing a plan that takes you through the journey of the process of the investment, of the renovation, of all those things. They put you at an end point in which you can harvest. Maybe you exit by way of sale. Maybe you refinance, things of that nature. So one of the entry points of real estate investing can simply be a traditional deal, right? Traditional. You're not going to see this frequently in investing, right? Unless you get a multi, but that's a whole nother conversation. And in traditional deals, you'll see most people go conventional, FHA, VA, or cash, right? When somebody enters a deal, they're going to very likely acquire a loan. That's what 85 to 90% of all deals you see go down. Where somebody will go get a conventional deal, a FHA deal, or a VA, somebody that's a veteran, a deal like that, or they'll pay cash. Typically, I always see conventional and FHA. FHA is very favorable because of the low down payment and the low rates and fees that are associated in closing the deal. So when we enter traditionally, you typically see those on properties that people are going to look at holding for at least a year or more. You can still use any of these means, especially cash, to buy an investment. Now, when we think about investments, we think about, for me, oftentimes, I'm thinking about a property I can acquire for a discount, implement some money to improve the property and some resources as far as labor, tile, sheetrock, framing, right? To improve that property and then go put it back on the market at a premium. And it would be the purchase price of the property in addition to the fees, the improvements, the cost of labor, holding costs, minus the resale value, and the difference of that would be my net profit. You also look at something else that's important. Again, we're specifically talking about a real estate investing. Let me take a step back. When utilizing the traditional route of owning a home, people say, well, hey, that's not an investment because you're not selling it to make money immediately. Well, when we define investment, it all goes back to your buy box, and that's something we've been talking about continuously. Your buy box is a list of criteria in which you utilize to determine what type of investment is good for you. That could be based off a neighborhood, that could be a price point, that could be something like, hey, within my buy box, I only buy properties in a certain neighborhood, or within my buy box, my gain on a deal is X amount. I'm going to make $30,000. So that means anything outside that buy box If you go look at a home that's an investment and you say, hey, I can't make at least $30,000, it would be outside your buy box. So then you wouldn't deal with it. If it was out the state and you said, I don't have the resource to do something like that, that would not be in your buy box, and you would eliminate that and move forward, right? So when you buy a home through a conventional FHA or VA, you're typically telling the lender that, hey, I'm going to live in that property. Now, that's not a flip. That's not an Airbnb. That's not a short-term rental, right? That's not a value add, but it's still an investment, because one of your investments in your buy box could be, hey, I want a house for my family for stability. Now, again, that's not the standard traditional way people look at investments, but primary homes, they are investments. And what you find, I found in buying my first home, I bought it through a conventional product, and I kept it for like about 5 or 6 years. And I made money on it. Not only did I make money on it, the tool for properties that you keep as your primary after 2 years, you don't pay a capital gains tax. We won't go too deep into that, but the type of profits you make in there, you don't have to split that and share that with the IRS. So definitely investment, definitely is a way to get your experience. You buy your primary house and you say, hey, look, I bought this house, I'm going to live in it, but while I'm here, I'm going to do some improvements as my budget permits. So I'm going to remodel my kitchen this year. Next year, I'm going to do the bathrooms. Then the following year, I'm going to do the floors and the landscaping. Why do I still consider that an investment? Because it is. Because what you're doing, you're investing in a home that you live in, right? In a neighborhood you like, in a school district for your kids. But to even go further, as you can kind of classify that as an investment and as a way to enter real estate investing, is when you do those improvements on your dime and on your time, you get the experience of what it takes to work with subcontractors. You get the experience of what it looks like to manage a project and really get a stomach for what it looks like as you go through that journey. That's one of the biggest investments that you can make in yourself, because one of the things I see most challenging for individuals as they get into real estate investing, looking at flips or long-term holds, is the construction component. How much does it cost? And the convenience and or inconvenience that comes with the construction component of real estate investing. It's something that many people that are even successful real estate agents or real estate investors never ever experience and don't quite understand, because it can be a bit robust. You know, how long is it going to take me to do this bathroom? How long is it going to take me to do this kitchen? How much is it going to cost me? When you go through that investment by buying your first primary property and living in it, you buy yourself some time to do those type of improvements, which is very, very notable, very, very valuable. But more than anything, you really get an understanding of what it feels like to go through construction, because it can be difficult. It can be difficult, but simple. And by going through that process and making mistakes in your house, hey, at least when you get ready to invest, you have the appetite and the scope of what it's going to take to execute something like that, right? So currently what I'm seeing is another entry point that I practice very frequently is the fix and flip. Many people in our community are tracking down deals and looking to get in some fix and flips. Why is that? Because fix and flips allow you to do many things, and profitability is probably one of the largest things. And it very much is a very small business strategy. You're running a business when you're doing a fix and flip. And what you're doing, you're buying property at a discount, doing the improvements like we spoke earlier, and you're exiting, gaining some profits at the end. And when you enter real estate investing, we talked earlier, as you can enter using the traditional route, right? That's a slow and steady, but definitely something that is probably the softest experience in real estate investing. But then your other entry point is the fix and flip. And I encourage everybody that's looking to grow and scale their business, this real estate business, it's really entrepreneurial, right? There's small businesses and then there's entrepreneurial endeavors. Fix and flips is definitely entrepreneurial in the fact that you have to remain creative. You have to continue to evolve with the market, and you use that first flip as a means to scale into your next one, create a scalability platform, which undoubtedly should put you in a position where you're holding some real estate at some point. In addition, you're also getting more creative in how you're finding the finances. And maybe at some point you say, listen, I've been doing fix and flips for so long. The next possible move would be to get into some commercial or to get into multifamily. So very entrepreneurial, but you're definitely running a business. So as we get into fix and flips, we want to understand that, hey, this is a business, and how should I most effectively be running this business? Fix and flips have been a means for many people to really springboard their amount of wealth. You hear people say from the traditional route or the fix and flip route, they say, hey, I'm going to continue to work my 9 to 5. I work at the county, let's call it, right? And I'm not ready to get into real estate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save up my money at my job for like the next 2 years. Once I get 100 grand, I'm going to get into the deal. I'm going to buy some investment property. I'm going to buy a multifamily property. I'm not going to say that shouldn't be your strategy, but I'll let you know from a fix and flip perspective. Fix and flip. First, I have to spell it right. Flip perspective. What you will find is that entering the fix and flip platform very likely is the best way to scale your process, make a lot of money, put the money back into the business, and continue to do those things. You can make 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. The other thing about fix and flip in our contemporary time is that raising capital has never been easier. Raising capital to acquire the property, raising the capital to do the improvements on the property, raising capital to either pay for your holding costs or to roll the holding and closing costs into your loan is so much more likely than it's ever been in history. It's one of those things that are actually becoming the norm. And so I say, for those of you that say, hey, I'm going to work my 9 to 5 and I'm going to wait until I have enough money to get in real estate, based off my experience, my testimony to you is this: don't do that. Join the community. We have Deal Mastery 101. We have Deal Mastery 201. Once you start becoming a successful individual with the fix and flips, you'll find that you're rolling in hundreds of thousands of dollars very easily, right? With the right tools, right? And the right resources, to not have to wait 2 years of saying, I'm going to save. And most of the time, things come up. It's hard to save 50 grand a year from your 9 to 5 when you're raising a family and doing things of that nature. So for those of you that are considering that, I would say, hey, I would reconsider and say, hey, what is it going to take for me to get into a fix and flip in the next 90 days? Another entry point that I see very, very frequently is what we call seller finance. Seller finance, very simple. There are many opportunities out there to get what's called a seller finance. Oh, I wrote that so quick, forgive me. Seller finance. A seller finance essentially is this: when you have a seller that has a home, that they're willing to do a deal in which they probably don't even actually go on the open market, but you come to them as a buyer and you say, hey, I want to buy your home and I want to give you X amount down, maybe 5%, 10% down on your property. And you, the seller, you continue to carry the note, you carry the debt on the property while I make monthly payments to you. Essentially, we draw up a contract where you're the bank instead of me going to get a traditional conventional FHA, VA, or having your own cash. And you say, hey, you'll be the bank for me and I will make monthly payments to you. And what they have in these contracts a lot of times are called call dates, meaning in 5 years it's due in full, and or I could refinance conventionally FHA, VA. I see individuals go that route more oftentimes because they don't have what it takes a lot of times to satisfy a traditional loan. Capital could be one of them. Credit could be another one of them. Proof of income or employment can also be another one. You would ask yourself, okay, why would I do that? And why would a seller do that? Most of us would do that so we can get into the game. Just getting into the game is so important, because once you get into the game, or once you get into real estate investing and you start having these experiences, you really understand your strategy and your style and say, okay, I get a lot of what's going on. Let me employ the way I would execute this with my skill set, my resources, and that really is a good springboard. So on the seller finance, you would ask yourself, well, why would a seller do any financing, right? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but let me give you one example. Maybe that can help you paint a picture. A lot of times you'll see people that have invested in real estate early on and acquired property really, really early on, and they have paid it in full at this point. There's no mortgage on it. But what happens when you have investment properties, especially as you get older, you say, hey, I no longer want to manage these properties, right? But if I sell it for $300,000, that my taxable obligations to the IRS is going to be huge. Why, if I sold this property for $300,000, why would I want to cut the IRS a check for $100 grand? This $100 grand is going to be dedicated to part of my retirement, and or I want to roll this into my grandkids, not have the IRS just come snatch it. So by doing a seller finance, you find that there's some strategies for a seller that don't require them to take all the money at once, because they probably don't need it all at once, but also they don't have to cut a check for $100 grand to the IRS. When you make monthly payments or smaller payments in a 12-month period based off whatever they're earning per year, they probably won't have a very large taxable gain, right? One of the things you want to be careful about in seller financing is that in seller financing, you're going to create some terms with the seller that you guys negotiate: an interest rate, payment, who's responsible for the property taxes, things of that nature, right? But you want to make sure that when you're buying it, is it a deal? That goes back to your buy box. What's a deal? if you're buying a seller finance at market value or premium because they're willing to hold the note for you, you probably won't be able to, if you buy it in today's market or even last year, right? Let's say you bought a seller finance last year at market rate, or probably paid a little bit more of a premium as an incentive to a seller, right? You're probably not going to be able to jump into this year where rates and values are, or next year and just go sell it. If you sold it, you might even be at a loss. So understanding your buy box and understanding your strategy and understanding completely how that works, that will let you know that my entry is by seller finance. But understanding your exit, the win, and how you're going to exit is very important, because if you were in this year, you bought it last year and you try to sell it, you would be losing money. There's a lot of fees associated, and you haven't seen values really jump. With seller finance, very good strategy, very good way. You can find those deals on Facebook. There's software out there, Facebook groups. Even on MLS, you can really set your searches for seller finances, and that could be a very good strategy about getting you in at this point with some strategies to increase your taxes, your employment, things of that nature. Another entry point. So we have traditional, we have fix and flip, we have seller finance, and I almost lost this other one, but we also have, we have this is a method. At the entry point, we have what's called a buy and hold. So as you're growing your portfolio, your traditional may be a buy and hold, or you buying it through any of these other means may be a buy and hold as well. Meaning you're going to buy this property, and as you enter it, that's where your strategy comes in. As you enter it, your buy box comes in. As you enter this deal, you're going to tell yourself, hey, I know I like this deal, and I probably will hold on to this for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years based off location, based off my strategy. But understanding the purpose of the buy and hold is very important, because when we enter property and we don't have clarity with what we're going to do, it will cost you. And it can cost you a heavy penny. That's why it's so important for us to understand our buy and hold strategies. I want to get into exit strategies. I'm sure there's going to be 2 other ones that pop back in. One has evaded me. But so we identify a deal and we're entering it with the concept of, this is how I'm going to close in on the deal, right? But at some point, we all will exit real estate, right? And whether it be through death, whether it be through sale, any of these things. And so what's important is understanding how you're going to exit a deal and understanding what your options are when you do exit a deal. You know what? I got it. Here was another one I was going to talk about. This is wholesale, right? Wholesale is a strategy that I see frequently. DM 101 lives are always back to the basics. So we're not going too deep into any of these concepts, just giving you a surface level and a reminder of how this can work for you and how you should be very cognizant of this as you're entering real estate. The wholesale component is a component that you see a lot of people make a lot of money. And the risk associated with wholesaling in a fix and flip, on a fix and flip, you take on all the risk, you put up all the capital, and you do a lot of activities to get that deal over the hill. With wholesaling, you essentially get a property in contract based off the ability to sell. You're owning the ability to sell a property, very likely to another end user. And so with wholesaling, getting in front of the people and sellers that have the property, that can be expensive, or that can be very laborsome, right? But with the right tools, the right information, you could find deals that are either off market, on market, and tie that contract up and then go sell that contract. And I bring that up because, excuse me, I hear a lot of people that get into real estate say something similar to the 9-to-5 component. They say, hey, I'm just going to start with wholesaling because wholesaling's easier to get in. I can make more money and I don't have to put up so much money. Then once I systematize and I have success in my wholesaling business, I'm going to take those funds and then I'm going to invest it in a fix and flip and long-term holds. There's some fallacies within that, or maybe even some misconception or miscommunication with that, very similar to the concept of working your 9-to-5 to make this money to enter real estate. Most people that I know that get into wholesaling never actually get into wholesaling. Wholesaling is a very lucrative business, but you see a lot of people at the top being very successful, I know a gentleman is spending about $1 million a year in marketing right now in his wholesaling business. So his overhead, that's just marketing. His overhead is extremely healthy, is what we'll call it. And so to be able to get in and have the strategies, the lessons, the capital, the resources, and be able to execute on something like that and beat out guys like that is not impossible because it's done before. It's being done right now and it'll continue to be done. But what I see is people getting to the idea of, I'm going to take the easier way into entering. And there's nothing really easy about real estate. We talked about that earlier. It's very challenging, but it can be simple with the right information as you're networking. Like I say, join our community. We'll provide more information like we always do. But I don't see many people break that. If I was to put a percentage on that, I would say 85% of people that I meet that say they're going to get into wholesaling, they never break their first deal. They never. So they sit on the sideline for 1 or 2 years. I'm going to wholesale. I'm going to wholesale. I'm going to go to meetups. I'm going to go to meetups. And you never see the executions and the success because of how it needs to be done and the probability and the finances and the capital. Very, very difficult. You won't get private money lenders or hard money lenders to loan you the money to do marketing to run a successful wholesaling business because there's no physical asset. But you can get private money lenders, investors, and wholesalers to loan you money on a fix and flip based off relationships and getting correct information and showing them your ability to get the deal over the hill and showing them a deal. That's more likely than being able to find either 50 grand a month, 10 grand a month, 30 grand a month to do these things, to get in front of these sellers and execute these deals. Very labor intensive, very time intensive. I'm not going to tell you no, I'm just going to tell you based off my experience. So wholesaling, great tool to utilize. I would say I would always go with the entry point of fix and flip and leverage wholesalers to find deals, to find off-market products, to find inventory that you can then go get the money through a strategy, borrow on it, improve the property, and sell it. That's what I would be utilizing. But wholesaling is definitely an entry point. It's a legitimate entry point, and these transactions are happening every single day of the year and twice on Sunday. So then we're going to get into exit strategies, right? You get into, we're going to refinance. So you buy a property, distressed property, you do some improvements, and then you refinance out of it. Some people use this method that you guys might be familiar with, which is called the BRRRR. There's 4 R's in that. The BRRRR method, where you buy the property, you remodel the property, you refinance the property, and you repeat. You know, it's a system of you buying discounted properties, improving those properties, refinancing out of them, and using that money that you refinance out of them to put into another property, meanwhile keeping an asset. And if you can scale that correctly, you essentially can do what's called infinite return, meaning you're in and out of multiple deals with no money in it. And that's a very good strategy, but you don't really see that, especially in California right now. And I know a lot of you are in California. You don't really see that strategy even in this market because of interest rates, because of home values. Very, very difficult to find a home so discounted and with the improvements that's required to get it done, and then go ahead and refinance out of it. And your mortgage versus where rents are, because over the last 12 months, you've seen rents get a little flat. I even seen some recede, right? So your mortgage is $2,100 and rents for that market is $1,700. So you're bleeding. So you don't really see that being a very profitable strategy, although I'm sure some people are being able to get it done, but then it goes back to being able to go the traditional route, because when you refinance, you have to have the income, you have to have the tax returns, you have to have income, tax returns, proof of employment, you have to have all these components, right? And credit score as well. And that typically is something that we don't always have when we're first getting into real estate. And that's why we're getting into real estate. It's important for you to note that. A lot of people, when I ask them why they get into real estate, they say, because I want a duplex. I challenge you on that. I say, getting into real estate should be a means of a tool, maybe to get you away from your 9 to 5, maybe to give you options at an industry that has no cap on the type of money you can earn and activities you can do. They're really, really fun once you get really good at it. But the whole purpose of real estate, I think for a lot of people, should be that I'm going to utilize real estate investing to be able to buy me back the life that I want. Whether I want to spend more time with my family, whether I want to have a lifestyle that allows me not to be worried about my finances, whether I want a lifestyle that allows me to be able to leave and not ask somebody if I can get a 1-week vacation. leave and go on vacation or do other ventures that bring you back happiness and peace. Allow you to be able to generate some income, some money, right? To then take that money and go invest it in maybe a passion project or other dreams you may have. Change the world, right? So I want you to keep in mind that for me and many people that I meet that have done some pretty good things in real estate has given them the power to control their life and buy back their time. And I want you to consider that. So we have the refinance, right? That's one of them. We have just simply cash out, right? So you bought the property, you improved the property, then you sold it and you took your cash, right? That's the fix and flip. You exit it by way of sale. The refinance is one. The cash out is another one, right? And then another one, and it could be under the refinance, is maybe you want to do a business within the property you bought. So you bought a property at a discount, even market value, and you had this concept of I'm going to not only buy the property, but I'm going to put a business in the property. And that looks like Airbnb, right? That looks like sober living. That looks like insurance, business, and I'll explain that. That could also look like midterm or just a rental, right? And there are a few others. So an exit strategy could be that you acquire a property, whether it be at a discount, you improve it, or market rate, and in the right location, and then you put a business within this. This business can be an Airbnb or a short-term rental. You can do sober living. I have two buddies that do some sober living. They acquired a property, unique property, right? This property has about 8 bedrooms, kind of funky layout. You're not going to see your standard individual who's chasing a property like that to grow their family in it, right? There's no living room in one of these houses. And what he was able to do is buy the property at a discount and bring it up to the standards and codes of the local sober living guidelines, right? And he runs his business through this house. So we acquired the property, and the business is generating X amount of money per month. It's paying down the mortgage, and the business is doing so well that he's making money off the business, using the business to pay down his mortgage, using that depreciation to then go deduct from his business. And he's doing this whole cycle that's very, very profitable, and he runs and manages everything, right? And that is a very good strategy if you can take on that type of responsibility. He's what's called like vertically integrated. Everything within his business, he operates and runs every component. It's very, very lucrative for him, and I think he's very happy. And then we have insurance. People's homes burn down, unfortunately. They flood out. There's electrical problems. There's different issues. And insurance companies are always looking to take these people, instead of putting them in a hotel, they'll put them in a home for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. And that typically is always at a very high premium. So if you build the relationships with the insurance companies and you acquire a property, you set it up right, you get on their list, and now you're getting premiums for this house. And now that outperforms the rental market. The other thing I'll say is the midterm rentals, like nursing, right? You have a lot of individuals that will buy homes based off location near hospitals, right? Where nurses, traveling nurses, local nurses will utilize this area, utilize this home in the area where they work, where they can walk. And they know it's short term, which is very, very good. And then once again, you get a premium. There's different lists and different networks out there that provide that type of service. I look at the rental as well as another strategy. And the rental is very good. But when you look at the previous ones, right, where people are operating business within these properties, what you find is not only are they operating businesses in these properties to make a profit and pay down their mortgage, very likely, very good strategy. But depending on where you live, you see a lot of people utilize these other methods instead of the rental method because of landlord-tenant law, right? And so we won't dive too deep into it. But when you look at your obligation of being a landlord with a true tenant and your inability to quickly remove them from the property if you have a problem, your inability to increase rent if you would like to. In California, it's like 10%, which is sometimes not always pacing with the market, or your ability to just do what you want with your property on a better level with more flexibility than rentals seems to be something that I see a lot of people like California and Texas and Florida and Seattle utilizing. as the local governments continue to crack down harder and harder on landlords, right? Make it very, very difficult. Then we also have another strategy, right? So we have the refinance, we have the cash out. We'll call this like the business method, right? And then we have like partnerships, I guess. Partnerships. So I see a lot of individuals, and there's many other methods. I see a lot of individuals say this: if they don't have the ability to get the traditional loans, they'll do partnerships, meaning they go track down deals, find deals, put deals together, maybe even raise some capital, and they'll bring on a partner that has the W-2, that has a proof of income, that have the good credit, and they'll partner with somebody, meaning, hey, you put up your profile and we'll be partners on the deal. And as you grow in real estate and your income may or may not be where it needs to be, your credit may or may not be where it needs to be, this partnership model is a very good model. You guys can split it or negotiate however you want to, right? But what you find that this grants you the ability to do is you're maybe not putting up all the money, but you're doing active activities like finding deals. And you find more deals and you scale them and you bring on your financial partners. Where you, let's call it 50-50. You go find deals and analyze the deal, lock the deal in. You bring on a partner, you have half of that. You go back on to another one, half of that. Go on to another one, half of that. Imagine where you can be with almost zero money down. You can very likely scale that in a very major way. And then at the point of entry, you find that your labor, the effort, your knowledge, your information has granted you the ability to be part of multiple deals and exit and make a whole lot of profit. And you didn't have to wait 2 years to gain employment. You didn't have to wait 2 years to increase your income. You didn't have to wait 2 years to improve your credit. You didn't have to wait. So there's a saying that says, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. So whatever it takes for you to get into the game of real estate, the earlier the better. With the better deal, what you'll find, historical data will show you that real estate continues to improve. Tax codes continue to be different strategies that help you keep more of your money at the end of the year. And when you do that season after season, year after year, even if you only own half of that business structure, you get 5, 10, 15 years down the line, half of 5 million is better than half of nothing. And so those are just some of the concepts I want to share with you. Now, these aren't the only entry points. These aren't the only exit strategies. There's many, many more. This is just a light touch on really the overall concept of really understanding the entry point and understanding the exit strategy and understanding your buy box. So before we really navigate through real estate, we're understanding what is our buy box. What is the box of criteria that we're going to live and die by? We're going to input this information and say, these are the type of properties that I'm going to invest in, where I'm going to invest in, how I'm going to invest in them. And if you have a clear buy box, it makes your ability to employ your strategy and get in front of deals and get into your first deal and utilize some of these other opportunities very, very quickly. The other thing that happens with the lack of a buy box is I was with one of my Deal Mastery 201 members the other day, and we were looking at a property that is probably an hour and a half drive from where he lives. And so we did a one-on-one at the property, shot some content, walked it, really made some sense of it, ran some comps. And when I asked him at the end of our process, I said, well, look, do you want to strike the deal? You want to partner up on it? What do you want to do? What are you thinking? He said, man, yeah, I'm thinking I really want to do the deal. I think there's some money to be made. Maybe we can negotiate a little bit more. But then I asked him, I said, well, is it in your buy box? He stopped, he paused. He said, no, it's not in my buy box because of the location of it. But based on proximity, I don't have the resources to take it down. The other thing is the neighborhood of the property was a more challenged neighborhood, had some challenges that weren't in his buy box. And he was prepared to say yes. And what I'll tell you with what little wisdom I think I have is the worst deal you can make in real estate is a deal that you don't understand. And taking out a deal that you don't understand or a deal that's not in your buy box, the consequences of that can put you in a position where you're forced out of real estate. I took down a project that wasn't in my buy box, and The scope of the project was difficult. The location was difficult. More than anything, the plans and permits were extremely sophisticated. And the cost of that and headache and concern for me was something that I never want to go down that road again. So that's why I'm telling you, get the lesson for cheap. Learn from me. You have to have a very clear buy box. And within that buy box, never step out of that box just because you want to satisfy a deal or your first deal or some money. Because by saying no to things that are distractions allow you to say yes to further opportunities. And I'll let you know, in all the years I've been in real estate, there's never been really a true shortage of properties. I tie the inventory, yes, but there's always property for sale. And there's always deal to be had. If you have the right buy box, then after buy box, we get into strategy. Understanding your buy box and implementing the right strategy is so important. So we're going to open this up for Q&A, right? Before we open this up for Q&A, what I want to remind you all, for those of you that are in 201, I appreciate you for being here. A lot of you are really grinding. I got some really good stuff on the way, working on some software for us as well, that we can kind of centralize ourselves and find out ways that we can analyze deals faster, right? And get access to data, because some of us aren't real estate agents, so we don't have access to the MLS. Some of us don't have PropStream, right? Or different software that will give you the data. That way we can analyze our deals faster, because the more deals you analyze, the more likely you'll find a good deal. And then once you find a good deal, then you can strike on it. But what I've learned, and the way I've learned, and what I've learned is that when things have a lot of holes in it as I'm trying to learn it, real estate it's a very steep curve. On that curve, if you can flatten it out and make it as simple as possible, centralize information, make it easy to access information, that makes it much more attractive for us to want to stay immersed in our database, immersed in deals that are coming, and analyze deals quicker with speed, be able to analyze a deal in 5 minutes, 3 minutes, very quickly on the back of a napkin and go on to the next one. That is what increases scalability and momentum and the possibility of really closing in on some great, great deals. So we're going to open it up for Q&A. If Trey, how are we doing?
Good. We have Natalia, we have Brian Badawada, we have Bashar, and we have Brian Villa.
And then I have a question written down here from Instagram.
Right on.
And ask Instagram.
Instagram. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Deal Mastery 101. It's all about the fundamentals and the basic. We're staying at the basics of what it takes for you to get to a deal. If anybody on Instagram we want to thank you in advance for joining us. But any question you have about some of the things we've been covering right now, go ahead and shoot it over. If any of you are interested in joining our community, go ahead and comment DM 201. I'll make sure I circle back to you as well.
Let's start here.
Okay.
And then we'll go here. We got 3 questions on this.
You want to read it to me, or you want to pop over here?
Just ask the live.
Can anybody hear me? Natalia, you have a question? Oh, the volume's down.
Was it on?
Yeah. Natalia, you there? I just put it. Hey, I'm sorry. I don't know who had their hands up first, but Natalia, I have you on the line. Go ahead, shoot your question. And also, before you say that question, if anybody wants to add to our list of exit strategies and entry points, please feel free to share. I can get a bit molecular at times. Natalia, you there? Do you have a question by chance? It's very important, and I'll answer that. For many, many reasons, location is important, but we're just speaking about, I'm looking for a software for our 201 community, right? To keep things simple, because real estate is difficult enough, complicated enough, right? So when you don't, there's what we call the shiny object syndrome, right? When you don't have crystal clear criteria when executing real estate and real estate investing, it adds a layer of complication to your process. So you heavily work in the Sacramento area. And if you don't have a clear buy box, 2 things can happen, many things, but I'll give you 2. When somebody calls you and say, hey, I have a deal in series, right? And you can make $100,000. What you're going to have to do then is say, okay, I like the deal, because analyzing deals faster are important. Getting into the right deal is important. So you'll dedicate all your resources to this series deal, analyzing, solving for it. Then you get in contract and you close the deal. Now, because this is your first fix and flip, you do want to be as hands-on as possible, knowing you have family, work, and other commitments. So now you're driving the series back and forth. Suppose you have to pull permits. Sometimes the county offices are open from like 9 to 12. So that means you're taking days off because you're probably going to be the one to have to pull them, or you're going to want to go along that process with your contractor so you know the why, right? So now in what will be like a 60-day remodel, let's imagine that. You're going to be driving back and forth to Ceres, which probably from where you're located could be about 2.5 hours. So why would we put 2.5 hours and that much stress on our first deal as we're trying to learn so many other things? I would rather, instead of making 100 grand on that deal, I would get something in Sacramento and make 30 grand, 40 grand, where it is along my path of going home to work, or when I pick up my kids from daycare, it's already in that area. So the simplicity of it doesn't add a higher burden of stress, and increases my probability of getting it over the hill and really understanding what happened. Because real estate is a very emotional sport too. You don't want to be stressed if we're already stressed. So that would be my first thing. But also, when we're analyzing deals, as we spoke probably about 4.5, maybe 5 weeks ago, we talked about utilizing realtor.com to be able to execute on analyzing deals in our neighborhood, because we know our neighborhoods. I would imagine you don't know Ceres that well. So what is a good neighborhood and what is a good price for it? And so not knowing a city or neighborhood, as we all know, whatever city you're in California, more particularly, different pockets of any neighborhood can go from good to bad to ugly. This could be on a main street. This could be by a factory. This could be on a street that has been largely drug ridden for a long time, but we would not know that this street in Ceres has drugs, which would be a reason for somebody not to want to buy the house when we go to our exit strategy. So location is so important for so many reasons, but the first thing about it, I would say this, is because location should be based off an area you already know, right? And then the second one would be off the convenience of execution. We can't make this any harder than it already is. We have to increase the probability of our success by keeping it very, very simple. Right on. Great question. Who else has a question?
Any of the Bryans or Bashar?
Brian, Bashar, you have a question?
All right. We'll just move on.
Okay.
All right. First Instagram question from Ball Out Moolah. I think that's the name. Which entry point is the best? Which entry strategy or entry point is the best if you don't have a lot of money?
Good question. Good question. Before we look at entry point, we would go back to we would start our buy box. So you would start on your buy box. Where do you want to buy property? How much property do you want to purchase? Where is the resources of money coming from? Who is your team of contractors, subcontractors, professionals, inspectors? Where are all of these things at, right? And these would go in your buy box. Now, naturally, I'm not sure where you live. I want to put your address there, or your city there, rather. Wherever you live, you should be focused on the neighborhood very likely that you live in, or a neighborhood you're very familiar with, or a neighborhood that has a lot of upward potential to be able to sell and get you higher values, right? And so when I think about entry strategies being the easiest, I don't think any of them are necessarily easy. I think that the term, and I'm not playing with words, would be which one can I more likely execute with confidence and be able to have the resources to be able to get me the thing done. And that would very likely be the fix and flip, right? Because the fix and flip is going to be, they're all capital intensive, right? But the fix and flip, there are people, many banks, private banks, and personal people out there that will loan you the money just based off the asset. This traditional one is one that I always encourage to be your first home. Supposing you have the tax returns, the credit score, and the neighborhood in which you want to live in, they have the availability that reflects your family's goals. Now, you can get these as little as 3.5%, sometimes less than that, with what's called DPA, down payment assistance program. So if you're investing to try to scale within the first 90 days, and then within a year, really have some profitability that you can grow your business, it would be this one. Traditional is very easy and the entry point is low, but you won't be selling the property. You won't be refinancing the property. You will buy this property and a minimum you'll be sitting for 1 year. So I would have to go with the fix and flip is the most realistic thing that can be achieved and executed, and you can have that feeling of success and know that it could be duplicated. But they all work. I encourage and I teach the fix and flip.
All right. The next one we have, how do you define your buy box? What are the different benchmarks?
Yeah, good question. Very good question. How do I define my buy box? Our buy boxes, number one, they're always evolving. But I would say, who asked that question?
I don't know. It was from a while.
No worries. So let me answer this. I would literally create a box on a blank sheet of paper. And I would say my buy box. The very first thing, if I've never invested in real estate, the very first thing is in my buy box is going to be homes in my neighborhood, or homes in my city, or homes in a specific neighborhood. Then I'm looking to say that, hey, I've never done a flip. My resources are thin. So in my buy box, I'm only going to operate on homes that have light lifting, meaning I'm not going to be changing framing. I'm not going to be doing anything that's probably going to be requiring plans and permits and or activities that I know nothing about. I would be working on cosmetic flips. Those typically have lesser return on because the lift is lighter. So paints, floors, kitchen cabinets, countertop, and some bathrooms, right? Maybe replace some windows, something very light. So the second component of my buy box, if I never invested in real estate, is light fix and flips. Another component would be the financial component. Where am I going to get the money from? That may be a question mark for you. And again, in 101 and 201, we dive into it much deeper. But those are the first three things I would have in my buy box, right? And I'll add another one. I would, if I'm just getting into real estate investing, I would stay away from condos. Stay away from condos and stay away from properties that are in the country where you don't have this large inventory of buyers looking to execute. Because as you go through these flips, you want to put it back on the market and be able to exit that property very, very quickly. So when you go in the rural areas, you can make a lot of money sometimes, but you're not going to have that really heavy flow.
Can you like 4 quick bullets and just say each one more time?
Got you. So the first, I don't know if I can say them in order. The first one would be off location. The second one would be off a light flip. The third one, I would question mark myself and I would say ones that fit my finances. So you'd have to understand what it's going to cost you to execute a deal, right? And then the fourth one I would have to say is, there's a lot of good ones out there. I would say the fourth component in my buy box would be, we talked about the cosmetic flip.
No gas stations or condos?
No gas station or condos, but I would dovetail it back into location. Make sure I'm doing this property in a neighborhood that I already know, of course, but definitely something that has a high buyer pool by schools, 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms.
Okay.
Stay away from condos.
This next one. Would pulling equity from your primary home be a good way to get capital for your first investment property?
Okay, that is a real question, but I'll answer it in short. If that's where you can gather some of your capital to get into real estate, you have to give up something. If you can do that, great. Where rates are currently, I don't see a lot of people being able to achieve that, right? And it could not necessarily play in your favor. I think that because of that question, what that tells me is that, hey, I'm ready to roll. I want to get it done, but I kind of don't know this financial component. And there are better ways to raise capital than pull from your property in this market. And, you really change your finances. Your interest rate and your payment on your primary is going to go up. So I don't think it's really to your advantage, very similar to BRRRRs not working out, because there's internal components of the real estate market, the inventory, what we're doing. And then there's these external components that we have no influence or control over: interest rates, increase in taxes and government plans, things of that nature that you have no control over, or an appraisal. So I would say raise capital and join DM201.
There you go. All right, this one's from Jason Torres. He's buying a property for a family member and he wants to take over an existing loan for somebody, and it's at 6.17%. Is that worth taking over? He hears that 3% is good, but he's too new to know what's good or bad.
I mean, in order to solve that problem, one would need to know the value of the property. One would need to know the current mortgage on the property. One would need to know the length of the property, and more particularly the agreement that's going to be satisfied. Because your entry strategy would be to really essentially do a seller finance, right? Or you're going to house hack it, right? Sub 2 is what Pays Morby called it, actually. We would need to know more information about the 6.1% and how that's associated with how it performs and what you're going to do. Are you going to rent it? Are you going to live in it? But in short, I think that you got to get into the data and find out what makes sense so we can paint that story for you and understand your exit strategy. Join DM 201 and we can dive into that question in particular. I think you're on to something though.
Cool. All right, we have Brian Villa has a question. Go ahead and take yourself off mute and ask if I'm at it.
Brian. Okay, Brian, you're asking me the question in particular, so I'm going to answer it particular to you. All right. And we're going to be able to leverage your question so other people can learn. I think that's a great question. For you in particular, Brian, I think that you're doing a lot of activities that are getting you a lot closer to taking down a first deal. I think that in anybody in real estate investing, I think that for you, Brian, I think that you should hone in on one thing. One thing. What would that thing be if I were you? I would, for you, probably just specifically and aggressively raising capital because deals are really, really close to you, closer than you probably think. And you have a lot of resources and knowledge of how to execute a deal, and you have the right people. You're in 201, so I got your back, right? But you know a lot of people that know the construction component. You're a lot further along in your journey. But I think that where you're at in your journey, you have put in so much work and made so much sacrifice. It's like, man, where are all the deals where I could really show myself that I have what it takes, which you do. I know you personally. But now we need the results. And I think that if I were you, I'll be focused on raising capital right now in your journey. And once you have locked in some heavy capital sources, this deal's right into your nose. Because imagine this, if you start focusing on tax liens, which can take time, another resource, which can take money as well. If you get a tax lien and the deal comes through, where are we going to get the capital from? So honestly, tax liens would probably be a distraction for you. Capital. That's if you have that conversation for the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Once you say, "Oh, Jake, man, I got somebody ready to commit $300,000 for me," a deal probably be in your hand the same day, I'd imagine. Capital, Brian, you got it.
Last question. If you have the opportunity to purchase a local single family property versus a multifamily property, where the single family property has 6 rooms plus a basement versus the multifamily has 4 units, which one would you get? So single family with 6 rooms plus a basement versus multifamily that has 4 units.
Okay, I'll start with this saying, hey, have you analyzed both deals? It starts with analyzing the deal to determine if it's a deal. If the 6-bedroom is a deal, what is that deal? Meaning that how much can I buy it for? How much can I realistically rent the rooms for? And do I have the inventory of individuals that are ready to rent the room within the first 30 days? Because once you close on it, we got to get the occupancy up. And then the duplex, is it a deal? We analyze it. How much is it? What type of improvements does it need? And how will it perform? Based off the performance, because what we're looking at when we're investing, we're looking at business. We're not looking at living in it. So based off that business, with any business, I would take business A and see it makes $100,000 a month, and business B, it makes $120,000 a month. I already have the profitability comparison. And then I look at, hey, what is my entry strategy and how will I exit this? When I exit the 6-bedroom, if I do the modifications and I go to sell it, will it go FHA? Will somebody want to buy it? Because it makes no sense to make $50,000 a month on a deal that in 4 years you probably will sell. And when you sell based off the way it sits, it won't go FHA or nobody will buy it. So there's more factors that have to be looked at, but we have to determine, is it a deal? What makes it a deal? How will I enter the deal? And how will I exit the deal? And if you answer those questions and really tell yourself that type of story, it'll be very clear which one should be exited.
All right. That's all we have time for today. So,
all right, DM101. Appreciate you guys. DM201. I'll see you guys all shortly. Brian, very good question. Natalia, very good question. Very good questions today. I appreciate you guys. Instagram, send us a message. DM201 if you want to join our community. We're doing some big stuff.